Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Alchemized. This is the space where women's stories are honored, not just as isolated moments, but as a part of something bigger. I am your host, Dahlia Cummings, so let's enter the fire together. So joining me in the fire today is Miss Geneva Coach G. Livingstone. I will put it all out there so y'all know exactly who I'm talking to. And before I get to deep diving into her journey, etc., Geneva, why don't you just take the next 30 seconds to introduce yourself and just tell people who you are?
Awesome. Thank you so much. So my name is Geneva Coach G Livingstone, also known as Geneva Livingstone Crawford, and the Gangster Coach. And you're probably like, why? And the reason is my story, as you guys will see tonight, is forged from fire, literally from fire, not from survival, but from fire. Today is a really significant day because this is the day that I made the decision to take my 25-year-old son off of his life support. And I just had asked the doctor to give me 48 hours to let everybody come and say their last goodbyes, which is like 2 days from now, which is the actual day that his life support was removed. So when I agreed to this time today, I was like, oh yeah, yeah, sure, no problem. And then it settled with me. I'm like, wow, this date is a very, very significant date because I rose up like a lioness and I said, I will not be the mother that watched her son waste away in a hospital for me. I will protect him by letting him go.
Well, you see, guys, I didn't know any of this till right now. So first and foremost, I feel like I need to pause before I even dive into doing my Dahlia thing and just honor your vulnerability, even after realizing, because you could have said, no, this is too tough. I don't want to do this. Like you could have, we could have rescheduled, all the things that happen when you realize that something is not necessarily convenient, if that makes sense. Um, so I'm honored to be in this space with you. And I will do my best to honor as well as respect your story as we move forward. So before we go to that piece, I want to ask, where does the Gangster Coach title come
Oh,
from?
woo. In my journey, because it'll be 6 years in 48 hours that my son has passed away. And the first thing, because I was an active griever, was what am I going to do? Who can I help? What's going on? I wasn't even on social media prior to my son, really and truly, I wasn't. I had just been talking to a lot of women who had lost their children or who had had some type of loss in their lives. It was like, I'm a beacon. Everybody's coming to me, everybody's telling me their story. And my friend said to me, in her kitchen, on her island, we're chit chatting, and she's like, you need to make a video about how people are supposed to relate to grievers. And I was like, uh,
Mm.
okay, okay. And at this point, I thought I was just going to do grief. So I did that video and I did it the day after my son's birthday. It was the first year of the pain when it is deep and it is great. But over time, what I realized is the way I grieved was so different than how other people grieved. And I needed to know why. And as I dug into things, I began to realize that it was because I had such a rich emotional base where I became the gangster coach as I was working with a client who was sharing her story about something that had happened, and we were closing the loops around things. And I just said to her, I said, listen, this is our imagination. How do you want to handle it? Let's get all gangster in this. And it's just that protection that comes up. I want you to think of the 20 and 30 style gangster where people felt safe with them because they were protection. And so in my sessions with my clients, that's exactly how they feel. It's like, all right, I got Coach G, I got the gangster coach with me. I can share everything, I can turn myself inside out and I'm not judged. I'm safe and I'm held. And so that's where that whole persona of the gangster coach, no nonsense, we're going to face the truth and we're going to do it together.
You know, when you started off talking, you brought up that you grieved differently. And I think
Yeah.
I want to live there for a second because I think a lot of people don't honor that everybody grieves in their own way. And sometimes people have a tendency to judge how someone has grieved. Like I know people that they may grieve, but their grief is more just silence. Like they'll just kind of withdraw into themselves versus the person that, tears are flowing and they're just really out there. So how did you deal with people? If you don't mind me asking, like, were you an outward griever did you withdraw?
I was neither. I was
Okay.
the I was the active griever, and that means that I was busy.
Okay.
I couldn't like this is what blew my mind. I all of a sudden was surrounded with women who had lost their children, especially their sons, like myself, whether it was in early gestation of pregnancy or whether they were teenagers or something. But these women hit rock bottom. I
Hmm.
didn't understand that. So imagine me looking at these women who lost their children. And I'm like, but I'm not grieving like this. I'm not grieving like this. Like, did I not love my son enough? Like, what's going on? I'm
Yeah.
like questioning. I'm questioning myself. I was like, okay, stay in my room. Let's see. Nope, 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 nope. I can't do that. So I was like really trying to figure out whether my grief was just so weird because it was just really different compared to others. Really, really different. So I wasn't an innie, I wasn't an outie. I functioned. I did what I had to do. I have, his surviving sister. I have to look after her. My mom has lost a grandchild. My aunt and uncle have lost a great nephew. There is a lot of moving plates.
Hmm.
And each one of us are watching each other. It was really cute because usually it's hard for people who are grieving to be supported by other grieving people.
Mm. And I just want to say, to me, it's at least it sounds like immense strength that in the midst of that grief, you're highlighting the grief of others. So it was, so
Yes.
it was, it's almost like someone would expect for you to just be consumed with this was my child, I have lost. Like you would have lived in an I space. And it seemed like even in that situation, you were still in a we mentality. Like there's other
100%.
people that are also going through. So I am grieving, but let me also be supportive and be there for their grief as well.
100%. 100%. And I think part of it comes from
Yeah, that's
like,
gangster.
yeah,
That's
I have,
that's gangster.
thank you. I have incredible support. Um, but I also was managing. So I also knew how to manage people, get things done that have to get done. That becomes a part of your DNA. Like your work stuff it's it just becomes who you are. So
Mhm.
I think that even my career as a manager really supported my ability to hold space for other people as well as myself. And I would give myself the very first year, 2 years, I would give myself around the 14th. I know I'm going to feel different, so I'm going to pay attention to it. So I don't want to say I scheduled my grief, but for my brain had a landing place. My heart had a moment where it's like, even though you're having to go to work, I mean, this was right before COVID, so there was the shutdown for a bit. But my boss, who was running a store, a grocery store, he's like, you need to come and work here, even though you're out of your fashion retail because we're too busy. And I'm like, okay, don't be home sitting doing nothing. Come to work. I'm like, okay. So I didn't even have time to like do that. I'm gonna sit down and I'm gonna cry for 2 weeks. It just did not happen. Did not happen.
Oh, I was going to ask, so were you a coach before this situation happened, or what were you doing before
Managing.
life lifed?
I was this retail manager for a bazillion years.
Okay.
Bazillion years. Thinking about getting into coaching, but hadn't transitioned into any of that stuff yet. Literally, my son and I were talking about it in October. He passed away in January.
Okay. So, question, do you mind if I ask what is your son's name?
Nathaniel.
Nathaniel. Are you okay if I refer to him just as Nathaniel versus your son?
Of course. Yeah,
Okay. Okay.
absolutely. Absolutely. Say his
Um,
name. I always say that to people. Say their name because that person existed.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I just didn't want to refer to him as your son. So okay. So help me understand, if possible, if we just start off with what happened with Nathaniel that took him in unfortunately into being on life support.
Well, I got a call on January the 2nd. We were supposed to well, yeah, January the 2nd at like 3:30 in the morning from the hospital. I was like, why is my phone ringing at this hour? I'm supposed to see him later that day, actually. And I pick up the phone and it's a nurse calling me from the hospital and they said, your son's in the hospital because he's had an asthma attack. I'm like, yeah, that's him. He's lazy. He doesn't buy his puffers like he's supposed to. So all right, he's at the hospital, no problem. Then they said, well, he has a lung that collapsed and we're putting in a tube and that's not a good thing. I said, I'll be right there. They're like, do you want me to send you a taxi? And I was like, no. So his lung had collapsed. As they were putting in the first tube, the second lung collapsed. And it was just over in literally 10 days. Literally 10 days.
This is kind of a special question, but what was going through your mind? So even as you were dealing with that, and as a mom, I can imagine on some level, just from when my daughter has done stuff, like you're in mom mode a little bit of like, okay, I have to make sure you're okay. Like you're everything is outward, but there's always this random piece that you're just kind of not paying attention to a little bit that keeps you going. Like what was going through your mind as this was occurring?
The call, me heading to the hospital, or just the whole 10 days of showing up first thing in the morning at the hospital every
The
day?
whole
Which part?
the journey, the 10
The
days,
journey?
I'll say, yeah.
Well, getting to the hospital first, the lung collapsed. I'm like, okay, his father has had a collapsed lung when I was pregnant. So, with Nathaniel specifically, when I was pregnant with him. So, I was like, oh, okay, no problem. So, I get there and then I hear the next lung has collapsed and now we have to put a tube in. And it was, everybody was going absolutely crazy. They were like, close the curtain, the mom is here. And I'm just like, okay, okay, okay. All right. So I'm sitting down waiting for him to go into the ICU. And I really had an intense calm because I don't have any answers yet. I haven't talked to anybody except the poor doctor who has to look at this woman and say, I have put two tubes inside your son's lungs. He was, partying and he has an illicit drug in his system. And I'm like, of course. And it messed up his asthma. And it was just like bang, 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 bang. And that's it. I'm like, all right, all right, all right. And then I'm like, I have to call my supervisor. I'm in the bathroom. I broke. I'm like, I cannot come into work tomorrow. This is what's going on. She's crying on the phone with me. I'm in the bathroom. We're both crying. I hadn't
Yeah.
even told my mom. I hadn't even told my daughter. Like, this is just me holding everything to navigate. what is going to happen because
Hmm.
nobody knew. And then I'm watching my poor son have these seizures while he is under because he was in a coma, like he was couldn't see me, eyes closed, everything, but he's having these seizures while this is happening. He lost his breath too because he's super tall. He's like 6'4". Six, yeah, he lost his breath tube while he was coughing, and I'm just like, oh my, okay, okay. Incredible staff. Like the poor doctor who had to, it was his respiratory therapist or something. Like she looks like she's losing it as though as that like she had to fix it. I'm sitting there in the corner, like nobody can see me. But yeah, I just watched the team of people do their utmost for me. So I had like all of these little stair steps of support every single way, the whole entire journey. And then to have to come home and to tell my mom this. And then she's like, okay, okay, okay. And then she's in the hospital at a different time than me. And then having to tell my daughter, it's like, because my children are 18 months apart and they were like Tweedle, like one word, two syllables, each one a
Hmm.
syllable. And it was really hard for her. It was even still hard for her up to this day
Yes.
because she's lost her best friend. She's lost her little brother. She's blaming herself for, maybe if he had hung out with me, then this wouldn't have happened. And so she has the guilt, and I'm like, all right. But it's not coming out in the beginning. It's coming out in now, like year
Hmm.
5, year 6. So I am holding all of it.
I was going to, it's interesting that you kind of not closed with that, but said that because I was going to ask you when you were first talking, you said you were like you were holding everything, and I think that's what could not verbalize earlier when I was like when you're operating in mom mode, you're like holding the gates, like you're like holding the floodgates to make sure that nothing just you know overcomes you. So because you have to be able to manage it, not just for you, but for everyone. Did
100%.
through this, have you ever hit a point where you had to take your hands off
No.
and just no?
No, because there wasn't a reason to do so. It's when I talk about holding space, it's not about controlling the narrative because
Mhm.
it is what it is. That gangster piece of me is what is the truth. That part is my North Star. As long as I can stand on the truth, then I can see everything else that needs to be seen. And because I was taking care of myself, where it's like, okay, the first Mother's Day is coming up. I know I'm going to feel a certain way. I'm going to take that time for myself. The 14th is coming up of every month I feel it. Okay, just schedule yourself not to work on the 14th of every month until you can do so.
Mhm.
So I wasn't ignoring my grief while holding space for everybody else around me. Not at all, because then I would be a terrible leader. And then my biggest fear, and what I even see with clients, is that when you hold back, eventually that dam breaks. And when that dam breaks, it's not how you wanted it to happen. And so I never had that. I was never in that place. It was like, I'm emptying myself out. Okay, I can be full again. I'm emptying myself out. Okay, I can be full again. That's how I navigated it. So I didn't have to ever take hands off because it was never about control. It was just about how to navigate the sea.
I love that because I feel like a lot of people go through grief holding the floodgates, right? Like trying to make sure things don't fall apart. As you said, at a certain point, because you're in this place, you can't, it's like you're not Atlas, like you can't hold it, but for so long, and life is continuing to happen. So I love that you said it was like a cycle of like, I release, and then when I feel like I'm back to myself or wherever I need to be, I come back. And then I am preparing myself for the next cycle of, and it's all okay. And I think that's such an interesting, and not different, but different in the way that I think the average person actually handles just grief, anger, rejection, all of those things. Like, I think we as a society have a tendency to want to hold it back. Like we just, everything has to be perfect and it has to be this, instead of just, 'cause I wrote down that she is consistently embracing grief. And there's a strength in that, that I think that, at least it sounds to me, and I don't know if you've said it to yourself, like, oh, I'm strong because I do that, but it feels like there's a strength in embracing the emotion and the moment and being okay with it, recognizing it, watching it come down the street and say, okay, here we go, and living in that moment in fullness and grace as well, giving yourself that, thank you, because I was like, what am I trying to say here? Giving yourself the grace for that moment and for those times, I think is an absolute beautiful thing. Um, I wanted to ask, so that season, there obviously was something that it cost you, right? When you look back now, what do you believe it gave you?
That is such a great question, and I'll tell you why. I became the emotional nervous system architect from the ashes of that. This is how I saw the cracks in people's lives, because grief really, really, really only has one function, and it highlights the stuff you've never dealt with,
Hmm.
right? And I'll just say it again because people are like, what do you mean? No, grief highlights what you have not dealt with. So if you are an angry person who does the put it behind the wall, I need to be a performer, I need to show up a certain way, when grief hits you, there's no wall. The stuff comes out how it needs to come out, and you're just like, well, I'm grieving, and that's just the end of it. And people think it's because of the grief. But all it does is it's the catalyst that breaks the camel's back, and that breaks you down. And that was the gift that I saw in grief, and how I understood that the reason I was so grounded emotionally is because I had a mother that was with me through every emotional moment in my life, that taught me how to be grounded. And I was like, wow, doesn't everybody have a mom like mine? Apparently not. The
No.
emotional wealth that I've been raised in is what held through grief.
Mhm.
And so this is now the message for people. So when you were talking about people having to show up, they do their thing. I need to look pristine. I can't show up like this. I need to show up like that. That's just performance. But they
Mhm.
are not going to think of it like that. But in my work, that's what the name is. We get down to the bare naked truth. It's performance. Who are we performing for?
So how do you get someone that is living in that performance place to see that they're performing?
They know it. When we do the rage tap, it's my favorite thing in the whole entire world, which is EFT. If you don't know what that is, it's emotional. What is it? Emotional EF. I can't even remember what it stands for. Something tapping. But what it does is, when you are tapping on the certain points that you're supposed to be tapping on, it keeps your cortisol low. So I have my clients start with the I hate, it's called emotional freedom technique. There we go. I have my clients start with the I hate statement. And from that, we just let the waters flow because I know that in order for me to get to the truth that's inside of you, we have to uncork the champagne bottle. And you will see where those issues are as everything begins to come out.
That sounds like such a and hopefully you understand what I mean when I say this. I guess when I'm viewing it, I was like, wow, I feel like that could just be such a volatile moment for someone to unpack, especially because I feel like a lot of people, there's layers.
Hmm.
There's layers upon layers, especially if you're a wall person or like you're like, holding the floodgates. You've been doing it for a while.
Yep.
Um, and so there's got to be layers and layers upon layers that are being unpacked when you go through that. It's almost, I feel like it, so and tell me if I'm wrong. I guess I'm feeling like you're almost dismantling their reality a little bit.
Uh, More than dismantling their reality, it's allowing them to be, here I hit that word truthful again, it's allowing them to speak the truth that they have been hiding from. It really does that. Because if you were to say to me, oh my goodness, you know what? When I was growing up, I had this cousin, and this cousin did this to me. All right, then let's tap on your cousin. Let's tap on your cousin. I hate, and again, I'll have some people who are Christians, and I get that. We're not supposed to hate. I get that, but that's also performance. And the
Mhm.
dismantling of that, which you said perfectly, is getting through trying to perform being a Christian, and you don't have to hate the individual. I want you to hate what they did because it still affects you. Can you say a yes to that or no? And it's like, oh, I'm like, there we go. Let's go. and then and then we let it rip because now the person can open up those floodgates and they
Mhm.
are safe. They can say whatever they want to say. There's nobody around. They're not saying it to their cousin, but they have to release it out of their body. It has to come out some way. So let's do it in an environment where it's safe and you can be empty.
I just had a conversation with a friend the other day, and we were talking about someone in their life that wasn't doing the things they wanted them to do. And I said, I was taught a long time ago that sometimes you have to love the person, but not what they do. And so when
100%.
you mentioned the like the Christian mindset, which is very, which I completely understand and is very true, that there's this belief system that is, I don't know where it comes from. I'll say that because yeah, I don't know where it comes from. That or no, I do know where it comes from. I think it's taken out of context, the whole love thy neighbor. It's like that. It's like there's more to it. It's not as black and white as it seems. It doesn't vilify you to actually have human emotions in your walk. Like that's a part of it. Like we're human, and you know, yeah, we can definitely go down the road with the with the Christian thing. I'm trying not to go there, but that's such a an interesting mindset because I feel like, as I said, it feels like you're able to you're taking someone from having on a certain pair of glasses, like they've been looking at life through this particular reality that they've had, they for whatever reason have felt like they've had to operate this way. And when you take those glasses off, it just feels like I could see it just being a freeing, just freeing situation. Um,
Yes.
because you're able to be authentic And actually, and I'm gonna play on the word on the name of the show, actually alchemize what you've been through. Because I feel like that's a hindrance. Like you're not even able to take what you've gone through and use it to become your best self or whatever self you're really trying to be, because you're holding on to it subconsciously.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. And the nervous system remembers. That is a really, really big thing. The nervous system remembers the first time you were scared and there was nobody there. And it
Mm.
almost freezes you. And when you are frozen in that particular thing, your perspective is of the 4-year-old or the 10-year-old or the 15-year-old who felt unsafe for the first time in their lives. And now they're 75 still feeling unsafe because your nervous system replays that 15-year-old minute that happened to you. And so these rage sessions really help to alleviate that pressure of that moment so that you can lead, live in where you're at right now.
So, speaking of this adjustment of beliefs and mindsets, etc., was there any belief system that you had about yourself that was adjusted from that season or changed?
No, no,
That's so powerful, but I feel like that speaks to the power of, and correct me if I'm wrong, what you mentioned before about the support system.
correct. 150%. You know how we all as adults are like blaming our parents for our stuff? Like I'd come home and be like, Mom, you're like 20% of the issues I have as an adult. Mom, you're like 10%. Mom, she's like, what, you demoted me again? I'm like, yeah, you're probably like 0.1%, of my issues. She's like laughing her face off because of that. And honestly, I will give you a story that will solidify what I'm talking about. I am in junior kindergarten and we are doing the Secret Santas.
Mhm.
And my mom, for my Secret Santa, got this beautiful big tea set, pink tea set. Like I will never forget this moment. Big pink tea set. And what I received was a book that was colored in. My
Mm.
heart, as a little 4-year-old kid,
It was done. You were
broke.
done.
Now, my mom steps into the situation. She gets down eye level with me and she says, Honey, I know that you are upset, but I want you to think that maybe this was all they had to give. And she closed that loop in my little mind at that moment. And I was like, oh, okay, over and done with. Just that. That's all it took.
That's the way to think about it.
And as an adult now, we've talked about that because that was like, that could have been huge. And she said, I was so mad. I was like, huh, but I couldn't take how I felt and place it on you. And I was like, ooh, my mom's a ninja. Like you talk about being gangster. That's like, that's my mom. That's my mom. She's a little tiny thing. That is my mom standing in between me and the onset of her own opinion being formed in me.
Mm.
This is like my first big disappointment. And so in my little nervous system going forward as I'm growing, it gave me the ability to look at things from a different perspective because that's what I was taught in that moment of pain in my soul. And she was like, oh, yeah. Then I looked at the guy and he had those Velcro shoes and his pants were short. And I was like, okay, maybe that really is all he's got. She goes, but I was mad. I just did not want to put that on you. I did not want to place that on you. And I was like, now you're only
Right.
0.0001% of all my life. So
Right, but that is a beautiful
that's where it
way
comes
to
from.
lead. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So that has always been how she is. Any emotional thing I'm bringing to her, that is in my nervous system. It's already set through, so it automatically becomes a filter, no matter what.
Okay, so I'm going to assume, because I think this was something that when we first started speaking that was brought up, that so your mom is an anomaly. We don't know what planet she's from. We're gonna place her outside. I'm going to pretty much make a judgment or a guess that a lot of the people that you speak with do not have that experience of having someone that they were allowed to be safe with, if I say it that way. So
Yeah.
how do you relate in that situation? Because I can see someone listening like, oh, well, she won't get it. I mean, my mother sucked, or, my family was horrible, so, she just doesn't understand. How do you how are you able to step into their shoes, so to speak, and help them through if you're coming from a supportive place?
You are going to be very surprised with my answer. I don't step into their shoes and I don't
I love
relate,
that.
and I'm not supposed to. It is you, it is your story. This is your heart. And one of the things, like, this was a big bridge for me to learn to navigate, was that's the first thing I said. I'm like, Mom, I've never gone through these things. Like, what do I do? And she says, it's because you've never gone through them that puts you in an incredible position for them, because there's no comparison. You're there to hold them, hold their stories, hold who they are, be there to support them through, just the same way I've done with you. I was like, done. All right, let's go.
Back to the coloring book. Oh, okay. So you were good.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, 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 yeah. And that's exactly what I done. Like, um, my most senior client was 74 years old,
Mhm.
and we went back to a memory that she had from two. What she experienced at that point, I had never experienced in my life, and I didn't have to, because it's not about me; it's about you. And that's where the whole gangster thing came from. I'm like, all right, let's step into this memory. How do you want to play this out? I'm just here to support. And she's like, really? I'm
It's
like, oh,
a
yeah, girl. Oh, yeah. Let's go. What do you need? And there we go. Off we go.
So as you were talking, I was trying to download all this in my mind. Like, okay,
Mm.
someone that has never gone through it. Someone that has like my mind was trying to put the puzzle pieces together. And then I think it finally landed on me that you're almost able, and correct me if I'm wrong, like I said, I'm in the middle of trying to color in this picture. You're almost able to see what wholeness would look like. Like
Mm,
if they're coming from a
no, if they're
broken
coming from pain and hurt, it's about witnessing that with them. That's
mm,
all. It has nothing, like, really, my work is all about restoration. It is it's nothing to do with me. It has nothing to do with my life, my world, how I've walked. There is no compare-itis thing that happens between me and them. They're coming to
yeah.
me with a situation that needs to be restored. It is 100%, what do you need? Like, what was the one thing that you needed that you didn't receive? Then let's give that to you.
So how does someone know, or how do you define, or do you define what restoration looks like?
Restoration literally is taking you back to the beginning, taking you back to the time when we have peeled off all of the layers of life that have happened, right? That you've tried to paint, you've tried to wallpaper. It's like, come on, we're going to take all that down. Come on, we're going to take all that down. We're going to take that down because your, again, your emotional nervous system remembers who you were always supposed to be. So I take you to the place of remembering you before the
Mm.
pain, before the layers, before the hurt. And as we are peeling all of those layers back and the wholeness is coming in and those loops are closing from specific situations, it just it just creates an incredible freedom for you.
For some reason, my mind is like partially blown right now.
Sorry.
I think I know what it's coming from. It's coming from, this is the first time that I have heard someone speak about healing in a way that does not involve them.
Mm,
Most of the time when I have spoken with coaches, therapists, et cetera, in some way, shape, or form, they have entered into that space from their own brokenness. So there's a tie there. So when they're
yeah,
working with people, there's a connection there that they feel like, well, because I was, therefore I will now, if that makes sense. And so this is one of the first times I think I've spoken with someone that does not attach their journey. And because you said earlier, like it has absolutely nothing to do with you. Like it's truly
mm,
about just giving them the restoration that they need. And
yeah,
I don't, that just, I guess for me, and I'm pretty sure for maybe, or maybe I'm just a special one on the call, which is okay. That kid has fit me before. Um, but that's just a different way of understanding, and I think that's also a part of it. It's almost like it's a different way of understanding um restoration and help. Like it does, you don't have to trauma bond
yeah,
in order to uh get to the place where, as you said, where you can remember who you were. It truly is just about, as you said, peeling back all of those layers and the wallpaper and all the stuff that you put on the wall to cover up the drawing that you didn't want anyone to see. um and I think that that's definitely why my mind is like, oh my god, like I've never. And I think I'm also blown that I've never, like, it's just like, well, why have I never had this conversation? Like everybody that I've spoken to has trauma bonded on some level. And then I also wonder, is that part of the reason why I think coaching works? I think therapy works, but I've also spoken with a lot of people that struggle in those spaces.
yes, yeah. I mean, think of I'll tell you a story. This client has passed away, but she had been in therapy for, I want to say, 30 years, maybe. And during one of our sessions, she said to me, I have never even had a session like this in therapy. Like what we did, the work that we just did, I've never had. And I'm like, really? And really, all it is that I'm there, is that I am supporting this person.
Hmm.
And because because it's all about them, I'm able to just see, like, this client was telling me how she felt unloved. She was one of five kids. She's like the last one. And, her mom was terrible to her. And then she would tell me these stories about her dad. And I'm like, how can you tell me you're unloved when your dad used to show up? You are in like nursing school. He's bringing your laundry, your uniforms are ironed, they're hung. He's just putting them in the closet for you. He wanted you to be named Marie. So he wrote on every slip of paper that name, and all the kids pick and they choose a name, whatever. And I was like,
Hmm.
and that was the name you got? Your mom said you couldn't have this stuffy toy. Your daddy bought it for you. She still had it. But she was just in therapy, they don't close loops. They just talk. And talk therapy just pulls you into the situation, but we need the growth from the situation. How do I close the loop on this so that now that's dealt with, and now I can deal with the next thing, and I can deal with the next thing, and I can deal with the next thing. My work is closing those loops so that
Mhm.
we can continue to deal with the next thing and the next thing and the next thing as they come up. And really, that is the difference between that kind of whole healing space and mine is like, I make you face the truth. So if you are not ready to face the truth, then you and I are not ready to have a conversation.
So agree with you on the talk therapy just kind of puts you on a gerbil wheel. I feel like it doesn't, it pulls you into the space and you just
Yeah.
consistently relive the situation, but there's nothing, you don't, you're stuck in that space, in that space. I agree. I definitely agree with you on that. And that's what I'm saying. I think now that I'm replaying conversations that I've had with people, even previous podcasts that I've done when I've either talked to a therapist or I've spoken with someone who has gone through something and went to therapy, I've heard a lot of people say, either, quote unquote, therapy didn't work for me, type statement, or, it was, or again, or it was the trauma bonding. And I think now that I'm talking to you is when it's like, oh, there's a different way of doing this that is safe and carries you through the journey, not just keeps putting you on the boat to talk about how you walk the plank. Like there's someone else like, okay, well, you walk the plank, you're in the water. Are we swimming? Like what are we doing? Right? Like I feel like that's where you are. Like, okay, we've hit the plank, you're in the water. What are we doing, and or what did you do, and how did you make it? I think that's it should not be fascinating, but for some reason to me today it absolutely is, because I feel like because I feel like it's common sense, but if for some reason I'm just, my mind is blown, it's like, no, it's not.
Yeah. Yeah. And
Okay.
I saw it person after person after person. Again, when I first started in grief, that's what I would hear. And I was like, oh, okay. So I comb through the timelines of your life from like 0 to 5. We try to comb through as much as we can there. Then we go to the next stage and the next stage and the next stage because I care about the beginning. Take me back to the beginning. And once we hit the beginning, then everything else can fall into place behind it.
So so when you so when you're working with, this is gonna, I'm telling you, this is gonna tickle me for the rest of the evening. Like I can't, it's just so common sense, but it just is, it's not at the same time, which is mind-boggling. Um, so when you are working with your clients and you are in this unpacking and you're taking people back to the beginning, um, how do you define, or I guess, how do you help them understand that that's where the strength is? Because I feel like we try to be strong during the cover up, not realizing the strength is the unpacking. Does
I
that make sense?
don't,
Yeah.
yeah, I totally hear you. It's the facade, right? It's the performance. It's the this is my pretty mask that I need to do. And the first thing that I do is I recognize the mask because it's there for a reason. Your mask currently is keeping you safe. If you did not have this mask, then you would feel insecure. There was a time when you probably tried to live without it and you were further hurt. This is why the mask exists. And I think honoring that is like the first step for that person because I'm not going to tell you that you've lived your life wrong. That's not my goal. My goal is to get you to become grounded emotionally, to ground your nervous system to bring you from a place of survival into a place of safety within yourself. And the more you are safe and the more you feel safe, you will make very good decisions. You will begin to live differently, love differently. Your nervous system is going to begin to unwind from the tightness of it. And the mask will just fall away on their own. I always say that by the time we are done, your yes is your yes and your no is your no. I'm a person that doesn't believe in boundaries. I think boundaries are for babies. We teach children, don't put the fork in the plug. Okay, like do not do that. You need that boundary. You're a baby, you have no knowledge. But as you are a woman or a man living in your life, if you do not want to do something, then you need to be able to just say no, full stop. No is a one-word sentence. And when I have people, it's like, oh, but okay, so there's performance because they feel that if they do not perform this, then something bad is going to happen to them and their nervous system is very unsafe. And so getting them into that place of safety is when we begin to just continue to unlock the truth, and all the rest of the stuff just falls off on its own. So I'm not going for the surface stuff. I don't care about all that. So that stuff gets blown up. That stuff just gets blown up all the time, all the time. I want to know what they want. What is the truth for them? You're
Well, you
probably
know,
tired of hearing that statement.
no. The reason I'm over here is because I'm thinking to myself, she literally just told people that boundaries are for babies. So I'm like, I have to backtrack because, of course,
I
you
know,
know,
I know. I
we
haven't even
have
talked
been
about
taught
boundaries. I
in
know.
every facet of life,
Yeah.
and from childhood through adulthood, that boundaries are a must. You must have boundaries. You must practice boundaries.
Sure. I know, and I just like blew up the whole concept. But again, you're a child, right? You do need to be taught that because you're small. And that's my whole thing about the loops that are left open. Something happens, that lesson is taught, and you just automatically continue to repeat it. Nobody really stops as adults to assess the learning that they've had over their lives. Like, okay, that made sense when I was 15, but now I'm 45, and that really shouldn't make sense. Why am I still doing it? But we're doing it because it just becomes a pattern.
That is okay. Okay, so I'm trying to think like, okay, devil's advocate.
Sure, go ahead.
Won't someone say, well, isn't me saying no and a boundary?
Um, if they are a person that has not had control in their lives, absolutely. Absolutely. Like I use the terms for my clients because they need the language,
Hmm.
but what I'm talking about is regulation. When you are regulated, like, okay, for example, you have a look that to me, I wouldn't walk up to you and be like, what's wrong with you? Like, I would just not do that to you because I might not like the pushback I'm going to get from you. You didn't set up a boundary that said, "Don't poke me on my forehead." You didn't. You just have a stance in you that says, "That's probably not a good thing for me to do." That's what I'm talking about. If you carry yourself a certain way, people know what they can and
And
cannot
cannot
do,
do. That is so good. I feel like I'm
right?
having an Oprah Sunday moment right now. Like that's
So this is why I don't believe in the boundary. What I think boundaries do for people, maybe when they're new in the world, my world, I'll set up some of those kind of things because they're still formulating their own safety. These are people who have grown up in so much survival that they don't feel safe in their own system. So putting all these tiny little things in place is, to me, is just like a regulated nervous system is just not going to do it because you don't need to. You know, I set up a boundary with you. You can't cross that line. Okay. All right, I set up a new boundary for you. You can't, that is emotionally stressful. And I am teaching people how to be regulated. I am not putting them back in a stressful situation.
It's funny because when you put it, when you display it that way, it makes total, it does make total sense. Like it's not like it doesn't have to be anything that you had to plan out. It's just like this is who I am and what I expect from my life. So this it
Yes.
is what it is. Not
Yes.
I had to sit down and physically create a boundary. That is so interesting. Okay. So, but I do have a question. So, and I'm backtracking a little bit to talk about the situation, excuse me, to talk about the situation with Nathaniel.
Mm-hmm.
You said you gave it 48 hours.
Mm-hmm.
What was the significant, where did 48 hours come from? Why not 72? Why not 24?
Oh, because I did not want him to have to continue to live hooked up to the machine. So I only asked for 48 hours so that everybody could just come and say their last goodbyes. I had so many people in the hospital. It was it was crazy. Like you had to wear a hospital gown,
Hmm.
and we had a whole entire metal stand of hospital gowns just for the guests that were coming to see my son to say their goodbyes. And so I just wanted, he had already been in that place for 10 days and he was already lean and skinny as it was. It was just too much for me to let it continue because what is this for? Is it for me? Because it's not for him. And so it was just like, all right, 48 hours just to let people go by. Nothing significant about it. It was just let everybody have 2 days to come and say their finals if they haven't made it. So I can make an announcement for it more than anything.
So I'm going to play um, the Christian devil advocate.
Go for it.
How did you deal with, or did you have to deal with people telling you that one, your decision was wrong, and the wait on, why did you not wait on God?
Oh, no, no. Because again, who I am, that could not be said to me. Not at all. I mean, my pastor had come, a pastor from a old church I was a part of. They came, they were praying for him. Another person came, is like, is it okay if we pray that God heals him? I'm like, absolutely, go ahead, because this is you and how you are relating to this situation. You have the freedom to do so. But as a mother who is entrusted with his life, oh no, the bear came out. Like there, nobody could say that to me. Nobody
Hmm.
could say that to me. Yeah, it's just, it's not even a boundary cross. It could just, they would just not look at me and say that. They would not look at me and say that.
That also is a very interesting, I think, awareness, especially given that we've kind of tossed the Christian thought
Mm-hmm.
process in there, because I know people that did not lose a child, but went through death, went through the passing of someone, and had to make hard choices, and did get that pushback or did get that judgment. And so it's just taking me back to the boundaries thing, as far as, it's going to make me, as I, once we're done today and I start to re-chew this conversation over, it's
Mm-hmm.
going to make me ask, like, not that it's their fault, that's not where I'm going with it, but were they susceptible to that? Was that an opening that people saw, or a pastor saw, that they were allowed to plant that seed? Because what then happened, of course, is the person was not able to then, of course, everything is now said and done. They were no longer able to be at peace with it because now that was running through their head. So it was like they weren't able to either just grieve in peace or just have that moment because that was said or because that judgment was openly placed um
Mm.
out there. And so it's just interesting to hear that you were like, absolutely, like, absolutely not. That was like never said, implied, or anything. And I think I'm glad, but it's also making me think about when I've seen it in the past and what and why.
Because, within our church environment, everybody uses scripture or that house of God relationship to speak freely. Like, have you
Mm,
had somebody walk up to somebody and say, God told me this about you? That kind of stuff. And if you are a person who is always looking for the manna from somebody else's word that God told them because they're kind of on a pedestal, because they're prophetic in some way, we can become addicted to that. And now, of course, I'm going to say it if I'm allowed. Can I say it? Can I just be real frank? Okay, thank you.
go
Um,
ahead.
while we're like running behind the prophet and the prophetess, to me, it feels like the same thing as calling a psychic, like, tell me about my life.
Hmm.
And is like, but what does scripture say? Plain and simple. You might want to say that to me, but what does scripture say? Well, Elijah with the uh-huh, and Elijah did uh-huh, but there were also people who lost their babies as well. And that does not make me a bad Christian because I had to make a decision as a mother. So, is this for me to show that I'm a powerful Christian? I'm supposed to perform for who? For you? I don't think so. I don't think so.
It's so on the one of the so on the TV show I will be talking about when you just happen to mention that there are also women that have lost their children. I was talking to someone about Mrs. Job, and I said she didn't have a name. I said, but we've only heard about her from a very vilified sense. Whenever they talk about her, they're like, she all we know is she told Job to curse God and die. And I said, but those were her babies too. Like no one thinks about that part that she was suffering. Like those are the children she carried, she lost, so it was like no one steps in that space to say, I cannot imagine the level of grief she was going through because obviously they lost everything.
Yeah.
um but they only pigeonhole her into that one moment of vilification where she makes that statement to Job. That just made me think about that because I was like, yeah, that is true. It's a sensitive place to be, but it's also a place that you have to respect for whatever that person is going through in the moment, and have that trust there. So you have come through a
Before
lot.
we
Okay.
before we move on, I want you to really hone in on what you said about the trust and about respecting that individual. So when you hear those statements that are coming out of that person's mouth, you think, is this respecting? Is this honoring the person that is in that situation?
Mhm.
What else is there to say after that?
Yeah, that's
Right?
true. That answers it. That
Exactly.
definitely
Where's
answers
the
it.
respect? Yeah, where is the respect? Like, how dare you? Like, I'm that person. I'll be like, how dare you say that to that person? You don't have the right. You do not have the right. You thought you did, but you don't. You don't. That was so disrespectful. That like I had somebody say to me who I knew she had had a miscarriage and she had buried her baby back home. It's Mother's Day. I'm in the first realm, the first year. And she looked at me and she said something to me. And I was like, "Oh, did you know I lost my son?" And she's like, "Yeah. Well, I just went and went to like my child's grave or something like that." And I'm like, "Dude, this has nothing to do with you." Like if it's any consolation kind of thing she was trying to throw at me. And I was like, when you were in that situation, I'm just a store clerk that you shared that with, and I sat with you in that moment. I didn't give you another story. I didn't talk about anybody else. And I said, but here you have the nerve to say this to me. I literally just stopped talking to the person because it was like, my son just passed away 5 months ago, and it's my first Mother's Day without him. And you said that. And the funny thing is I just looked at her and I was like, yeah, no, it doesn't. If there's any consolation, she had used that phrase. If there's any consolation, I just went and, visited my daughter's grave and stuff. And I was like, yeah, there's not. I was just like, no, it isn't. It isn't a consolation. Your grief and my grief, like, why are you trying to relate to me? Like, just you
Now
can't.
that I can stand 10 toes down with understanding that, because I feel like people are just afraid to just sit in the space.
Yes.
Like when people are grieving or going through something major, like it doesn't require for you to attach yourself to it. Sometimes just be in the space. And this will sound controversial. Well, I was at an art museum. I was with a church group, and I knew it was going to get up under their skin, but I just figured that like they couldn't understand what I meant. So they asked if there was one thing about being in church or working with women that you wish you could change. And I said, Jesus is always the answer, but he's not always the solution. And I was like,
Hmm.
because I said a lot of times we want to throw a solution at people. Like you're crying. It's like, oh well, God had good intentions, or you have to. I said, I'm fully aware. In that moment, you're like, I'm fully aware that He exists. I am like, none of my awareness has gone out of the window. What I needed in this moment was a friend, whether it was just a hug, whether it was just someone to sit with me, whether it was someone to say, okay, well, girl, let's go get some ice cream and just eat our woes, like something, and not you attempting to pacify it. And I think a lot of people struggle with not pacifying people's woes and the things that people have gone through. Um, I remember I went through a situation with my daughter, and I happened to call a friend because I just needed to vent. And it was like the moment I got it out, I got maybe like 3 words out. She like popped into the conversation and was like, well, you have to understand it from her part. No, I really don't. I really don't. I'm mom right now. Like I just want to help you understand. But it was like, okay. And it's similar. I just kind of shut the situation down and was like, okay, obviously this is not where I need to be venting or releasing where I am. But I think a lot of people have a very hard time just holding space and asking them. And I don't know if, well, actually, and why do you think that is? Do you think it just makes people uncomfortable? Why do you think people struggle with just being in those moments?
Because they want to be relatable. They want to be relatable. They want to be like, girl, I got you. I know what you're going through. Like, I'm like a sister with you in your pain. I'm like, oh, please, I'm not trying to share my pain with you. Um, but for your friend, because my mom and I did this with each other. She wants to tell me something. I'm a manager, so I go into solution mode. Opportunity solution, that's my brain.
Mhm.
And so I said to her, Mom, if you don't want me to offer a solution, just say to me, I just need you to listen. And I'm in it. No problem. Because that's what she needs.
Mhm.
And I'm like, "Good. All right." So she'll start and I'll be like, is this just a listen or a solution? Just a listen. All right, awesome.
Yep.
And you can say that to her. It's like, I'm going to say some stuff and I just need you to listen to me for the next 10 minutes. And if she's your friend, she'll be like, all right, girl, I got you. I'll listen. Done. Then you can just,
Yeah, just get it off.
yeah.
Yeah, I've had friends in the middle of it say, okay, is this a commenting situation or is this, I'm like, go ahead. Yeah, the feedback is open. Um, but again, I think that's a significant place to be when someone is okay with either being in the either or. Like
Mhm.
everything does not always require for me to put on your shoes. Like, no, I don't want to go through it. Why, I'm not trying to make you go through it. I just need to get the heaviness off of me in some way. And that's amazing because like I said, I do think a lot of people struggle um to hold space. Um there was a definition and maybe it's the same for you. There was there was a definition of strong, of you being strong before all of this happened. So what does being strong look like to you now?
Hmm. Um, I think the strength part is resilience,
Hmm.
and it is being as honest with yourself as you can be with wherever it is that you're at. Like that is the sheer grit of strength to me. Because if you know where you're at truthfully, then you know where you need the support, you know who you have to call in, you know what you have to assess to move forward. And as long as you just think like strength is just brute force and just pushing through things, you're always going to get pushed back and then you break. And then it's like, but I thought you were strong. I thought I was strong. And there's just all those situations that pop up from that. So it is being gut honest with yourself. Where are you at? What do you need?
So if there's a woman right now that is going through something similar, or maybe is coming out of going through something similar, what would you say to her?
She's going through it in terms of, I would need more context on it, to be honest, because it really makes it, everybody to me is like a special snowflake, right? So I just really, I'll say it this way. If you're in a situation and you find it difficult and you find it hard, I need you to stop for a moment and I need you to be gut level truthful with yourself. And I need you to really assess, what do you need? Not what do you need to do for others, but what do you need to do for yourself? And from there, the wisdom shows up. Whether you have to call in support, whether you have to navigate finances differently, the truth literally will set you free. I live on it. My work is all about the truth setting a person free. So get gut level truth with yourself. That's it.
So this is, you said a lot. I need to pause for a second. You said a lot. And I'm over here like, this is, I would say a very mind altering, not common message that I think people hear. Truth
Mhm.
is something that is not popular.
Yeah.
Pain and going through and unpacking and dealing with the emotions that come from that is not popular. Um, and I think we live in a time where people relish almost living in the victim space versus the conqueror space. Um, where they would rather, I had a friend's grandmother say one time that like not everybody wants to know they got a bird on their head. And I thought it was the funniest statement ever until as I got older, I kind of realized what she meant, that like not everybody really wants to go through the journey of knowing truth. Um,
Yeah.
and it's a sad thing, but I think part of it comes from, and correct me if I'm wrong, when you're working with your clients, I think part of it comes from the realization that in order to unpack that truth, along with that truth is going to come pain. It's going to come the grief. It's whatever it is that you've been shoving down that has to come up and out in order for the truth to be able to be revealed. And so I love that that is the perspective and the way that you are working with your clients and dealing with things, because to me, that's truly the only way to actually heal. Everything else is just, like you said, it's just a show. It's just you putting in a lot of work to become what it is that you could actually just naturally be if you just took that time um, to go through that fire, that journey, that peeling off and allowing the impurities to rise to the top and be scraped off. Like we talk about, the process of alchemy and putting something in the fire and they scrape off the impurities, but then they put it back in the fire. And if you've been living up under the mask for 50 years, you're going to have a lot of impurities that need to keep coming up until it's gone. But if you're willing to go through the journey, um I think what you end up being after all of that, you will never ever ever regret. Like I feel like I can speak from that even personally. And so again, while this is not necessarily a business podcast,
Mhm.
there's always things that we're working on. And so what are you currently like alchemizing in your life right now?
Right now, for myself, oh my goodness, I had spent so much time last year just doing covers, covers for Forbes Founder, Rolling Stones. I have like the whole Gangster coach image with my tiger, Gangster T, who is just like this apex predator of like, I'm here to watch the room, like in the restoration room. That's where I am. My tiger's outside, doesn't let any of the crap that went in with you come out with you. It's awesome. But truthfully, for myself, is the season that I'm in is being really real about even how I do my business. So performance for me is like gone. And if you feel like you are just done and tired and you're finished of performance, then just simply gangstercoach.com and hit the button, message me, I want you, and it will end up right into my messenger feed and talk to me. And let's see if you're done with the real performance, if you're ready for freedom. And so I guess if I was to alchemize something right now, it is people's freedom. It is the right to feel and to be free and safe in their own body.
Good. Especially with it being the new year, like the start of the new year. It's like, y'all, we got 12 months to get it together and to be free. We're still at the starting line. So before we fully close,
Mhm.
um, as I said, we've talked about a lot. We've talked about the hell of a journey, where so you were a gangster. You made some tough choices and you stood on those choices, and you've basically, in my opinion, almost taken that moment and used it to be able to help support others as they go through their moments, and as you said earlier, help bring them to restoration. So normally I'm asking a bunch of questions, but I always like to give my guests the opportunity to just talk to the audience and to the people that are listening without me guiding or so what are some parting words, or what is something that you would want to just have the audience take away from either this conversation, or maybe there was something that I did not ask that you really feel in your spirit that you would like to say. So I will be quiet and the floor is yours.
Thank you. I really want to say to every child, teenager, man, and woman that you have the right to feel the way you feel. And witnessing those feelings for yourself. This isn't about you projecting it on somebody else, but my boss made me angry, instead of like, oh, my boss made me angry again. And then tomorrow my boss made me angry again. It's like, you know what? I can feel the anger rising in my body right now. My boss really made me angry, and I'm going to just witness and acknowledge that. Now, I would like you to be tapping when you do this, but if you're not, I just want you to be truthful in every moment with yourself, going right back to the truth. I feel angry right now. I maybe need 5 minutes. Okay, good, good. I'm going to drive home, and I'm not going to cuss my boss off, but I am going to witness how angry my boss has made me without any judgment. Like, no, I'm not supposed to feel that way. Oh, no, I'm not supposed to feel that way. Oh, my Christian, I'm supposed to forgive and love everybody. And I'm like, yes, you are. But you're also allowed to feel the anger because it is in your body. And if you do not take the time to feel it, it piles up, it piles up, it piles up. And then the wrong person is the one that flicks that trigger. And you're not just angry in that moment, you're angry for like 50 years, 30 years, 45 years in the past at that person. And that's not fair. It's not fair to you. It's not fair to them. So really be truthful with how you are feeling to yourself, not to other people, but to you. That's it.
Love the symbol. You're like, that's it.
I'll stop.
Right. Well, look, Geneva, I just want to again thank you for being vulnerable. Thank you for sharing your story. Um, Again, I'm sure, I mean, I'm walking away, as I said, just kind of mind boggled about some common sense stuff that just doesn't seem to be common sense. But at the same time, I'm pretty sure that there's a woman watching that if she does not understand your grief, she can at least understand the journey and hear what you're saying. And I think that is important, that we realize, again, you don't have to trauma bond to heal. And maybe that's why therapy isn't working. Because you're just living on the plank, um, and not making the choice to jump and swim back to shore. So I will have all of Geneva's information on the closing screen for you to be able to reach out to her if you would like to connect. If you would like to be on the podcast, again, please just send an email to admin@dahliacummings.com. Again, I will have that also on the closing screen for us visual people. But as usual, I thank you all for watching. I thank you for being a part of it. And remember, the fire is not meant to burn you away. It is only meant to refine you and make you more beautiful. Thank you again and enjoy. Where do you go from here? This was my first podcast of 2026, my first filming in 2026. And it was also the first time that I decided not to get a background on the individual that I was speaking to. Normally, I'm able to like fully prepare for whatever someone is going to share. That way I have, maybe a few questions already prepared. So to open up a call with that level of loss, but also that level of strength, really, if you think about it, for most people, it's like an oxymoron. Like, as you said, we normally define strength as our ability to hold it all together. Our ability to manage the floodgates and make sure that everything is still sitting where it needs to sit. However, in her practice and in her life, strength is all about the grace that she gives herself to make it through. And I think that was definitely probably the most beautiful thing that I got out of all of this is that it is okay to give yourself grace to make it through. There is no one that is requiring you to be perfect. There is no one that is demanding that you hold it all together but you. And the more we tend to think that strength means holding it all together, the more we actually weaken ourselves from becoming the person that we're really meant to be. When she made the statement that boundaries are for babies, and after I really thought about it, it was like, well, that's true. But you would need to create boundaries if you're living from a place of weakness, like a baby. So I don't know. As I said, there was so much that was said today that I'm really going to have to take away and kind of replay this entire podcast conversation and let it settle with me. But if there's one thing right now that I wish that you got from today's call, it is to give yourself the grace to go through it. And there's nothing wrong with going through it. There is not one emotion that you have that is wrong. We are made in the image of God, in the image of God, He created him. God got angry. God has showed every emotion. So why can't we? Till next time.